Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escafe Online. Welcome to our live session this morning. This morning I'm going to be showing you how to make a galette. It's a flat tart and the shell has no leavener in it, and the shell that I'm going to be showing you has a little bit of almond flour in it for some texture and a really nice flavor. So this is really kind of a rustic, very flat tart, super popular, and has French origin, of course. And I'm going to be showing you an apricot version today, which is super simple. A little bit of almond extract, a really nice complement to the apricot. But you can make this with really any of the stone fruits. It's limitless what you can do. You can also make this with apples and pears. Like I said, stone fruits. Those include plums and peaches and just a variety of things. You're going to want to stay away from things like oranges and strawberries that have a lot of liquid in them. Stick with your apples and your pears and all of your stone fruits. You'll be sure to love this. You can mix them together as well. They complement each other nicely. So this is super easy to make. So let's go ahead and get started. So I got some apricots, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting these in eighths. So we're going to cut each half in quarters, and you can cut these thicker if you like, or thinner, whatever you want your galette to look like. So when picking your apricots, you're going to want to be sure to get some apricots that are kind of firm. You don't want these to be too mushy, too overripe. They get kind of starchy when they're overripe, and then they don't give you a nice cut either. So I've got one here, and this is how you're going to slice your apricot. Just go around your seed. And when I refer to stone fruits, it's a fruit that has a seed like this on the inside. So I just twisted this to release it, and you can go ahead and just pull the seed out. Comes out real easy. The peaches can be a little more difficult to take the seeds out because they have some pocking in the seed, and whereas the apricot seed, like the one I pulled out, is very smooth, and you'll find the plum seeds to be smooth like this too. So just kind of stick with it and just do some twisting, and then you'll get that out. And if you have any of this stemming, you can just kind of do a little V cut and get that out of there too. So we're going to be making a 10-inch galette, and for this galette you're going to be using maybe about 6 or 7 apricots, just roughly speaking. And you're always going to want to get a few extra just in case they're not just right when you start slicing them. And you can go ahead and use them for something like this because it's being baked. You can use them if they're a little bruised or damaged. Just you're going to be spiraling them around. You can kind of sneak in those little imperfections underneath another one. So our apricots are ready to go. I wouldn't cut those too far ahead of time, not the night before or anything, just right before you make your tart dough like we did today. Okay, so let's go ahead and make our dough. So I've got some all-purpose flour, and I'm going to be using sugar in the raw, which is this sugar, and it's still, it's more in a raw state. It's not completely refined. It's got some of the molasses in it, and this is the product that I'm using today. I like this, and it's going to be adding some nice flavor to this dough. I've also got a little bit of almond flour in here and some salt. So super easy, just a few ingredients. Once you make this dough, it's going to chill. I've got some that I made earlier. We'll roll that out, and we're going to be rolling it very thin. So do we have any questions so far? I've got some chilled butter that I cut in chunks, and I'm just going to be rubbing this in until it's kind of like a coarse cornmeal type of texture. You can do this on the mixer, but this is a small amount, so I'm just doing this by hand. Then we're going to be adding our liquid. I've got some almond extract mixed with some water and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. It's going to give it some nice flavor, and it's going to help with the structure as well. So keep in mind with any recipe when you're making it, especially when you're adding something like water, if the dough is too dry, just go ahead and add a little bit of water, but be patient, try to knead it first, and if it's just not working out for you, then add a little bit extra water. And please let me know if you have any questions. It's just a little simple rub-in method. It's a nice small batch, so I'm just doing it by hand. I kind of like to get my hands in things. I'm just going to kind of rub in some of these butter chunks. Be sure that your butter is cool. If it's too warm, this is going to kind of smear in, and then the flour is not going to coat the butter as well. So, looks like we're doing pretty good here. I'm going to make a well, and I'm going to add my liquid. I'm going to hold back a little bit on this and just see if I have a little bit extra here. Okay, so our dough is coming together nicely. I'm just going to be doing some mixing here, and then I'm going to turn it out on the board to finish it up. So, dough's looking a little bit dry, so I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of my liquid. And I may have to grab a little bit more water too, so be mindful of that, especially if you are perhaps in the north and it's winter months and things are drier. That's going to make your flour be a little drier too, so you might have to do that. This is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and turn it out onto our board. We're going to go ahead and mix it together the rest of the way. I might have to add a little bit more water, but it looks like it's coming together fine. Just like I said, be patient with it. Try to incorporate it before you start immediately adding some extra water. So our dough's looking pretty good. It's a little soft. So I'm just going to take some of these crumbs, put them on top here. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit more water, and we'll sprinkle a little extra on top. Could depend on the flour that you're using too. So what I always recommend is kind of stick with the same flour. Use the same flour all the time so it's a little more consistent, something that you're used to, and you'll be able to tell if something is wrong. And definitely any time that you're making a little bit of a variation on your recipe, go ahead and put a little note on your recipe so you know for next time. Okay, so we're going to just go ahead and knead all of these little pieces with the dough. It's looking really good. It's not too sticky. That's one thing you want to be aware of, especially with this dough. You want this a little bit firmer because you're going to be rolling it very thin. Okay, any questions on the dough so far? Great. Just going to knead this a little bit, maybe a good like 5 or 6 times. Make sure everything is well incorporated. And then this is going to go in the refrigerator until it's completely chilled. And you're going to pull it out and roll it. Okay. All right. Okay, so I've got some dough that I made last night, and what I did is I kind of let it come up to room temperature just a little bit. It's still very chilled, but it's not quite as hard as it was when I first pulled it out. So we're going to go ahead and roll this quite thin, and we're going to be rolling this to about 12 inches in diameter, 12-inch circle, just roughly. Keep in mind this is a rustic type of tart. So you don't have to get your circle perfect. What I'm doing is I'm kind of pressing these edges a little bit to get this started so there's not a lot of cracking. If you got some cracking with this, this is okay because like I said, it's a rustic tart. So do we have any questions so far? Okay, great. So just flour your surface. You can roll this dough between 2 pieces of plastic wrap as well. That works really good, or even some parchment. So I'm just kind of rolling with some flour today. And I brought my bigger rolling pin because I thought it would be a little bit easier. I highly recommend these. I got this one a long time ago at Sur La Table, but I've noticed that they still do have some of the larger wood rolling pins. The stainless steel rolling pins are nice as well. They add a little bit of weight. So be careful. You're rolling this very thin, so you don't want any sticking in the beginning, especially on the bottom. Okay, so it's going to take a little while, so just be patient. This is a thicker, heavier dough because you're rolling it thinner. It doesn't have a leavener in it, so you're going to need some structure to that galette. And it's got the almond meal in it. I could feel it when I was kneading. Some nice crumbs. It's going to add a lot of nice flavor. So please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so the galette is coming along. I'm going to turn this because I don't have a real lot of room to work here. Whoops. Okay, I'm just going to be rolling this to a little bit bigger than 12 inches. And I'm not being too concerned about the outside edges. Okay, it's looking good. It's looking about 12 inches. I brought along a circle. This is a 12-inch circle. So it's looking perfect. It's bigger, but that's okay. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to put our dough right on our baking sheet, and then we're going to go ahead and fill our galette. So I've got a baking sheet, which you can line with parchment, or I have a silk pad on this. And the easiest way to pick this up would be to roll it over your rolling pin. Get this up here so you can see it, and then you're just going to like very carefully kind of drape that onto your sheet. Okay, so we've got a little bit of flour, but that's okay. All right, so it's looking good. It's kind of overlapping, but that's okay. It would be super hard to put this on the cookie sheet or the baking sheet after you filled it with the apricots, because there's really not any structure. You could try putting a cake circle underneath, but I definitely recommend doing it this way. Okay, so now for filling the galette. Since we're going to make our galette about 10 inches big, I have a 10-inch circle, and I'm just going to be scoring around here just as a guide, so I know where to start and where to stop. So I'm just kind of giving it a quick score with my paring knife. So you can see our circle a little bit. It's not too pronounced, but it kind of gives you a little something to follow. Okay, so next we're going to be sprinkling this inside circle with some of our coarse sugar in the raw and some cornstarch. So what I'm doing is I'm being careful not to go too far to the edge. And this is what's going to thicken the juices of the apricot once it starts baking. So it's okay if you go a little bit out of your circle. Like I said, this is a rustic tart. And I also have a dry pastry brush on hand in case we need to brush off any of the extra flour. But the flour that we have right now here, this is going to be tucked over, so that's just fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to kind of fan our apricots around. So we're staying within our 10-inch circle, and we're just kind of going around. So this is a super nice dessert. There's really not a lot of fat in it. There's just a little bit of butter in the crust. It is sweet. There is sugar in it, but there's not a lot of fat in this. So it's kind of a nice lighter dessert. Great for the summertime. Does not need to be refrigerated. So you can make it ahead of time if you're going to a picnic or an outing, and it's going to hold up very well sitting out. So we're just taking our apricots around the edge, and then I'm going to move to the center. I'm keeping them kind of within my line, my 10-inch galette. And like I said, this is just a rustic, very thin tart. So, do we have any questions or maybe comments? Has anyone made a galette before, or maybe your thoughts on the galettes? You can also do savory galettes with cheeses and mushrooms and spinach and just so many things. You're going to want to use a savory dough. You're going to want it to be sweet, but they are great for making savory galettes too. Okay, so next to the center, I'm overlapping these a little bit. And I think I cut up about maybe 7 or 8 of these, and it's ending up to be plenty. So different shapes and sizes, you can kind of squeak them in a little bit. You just don't want a lot of big gaps because it's going to make for a much cleaner looking galette. So it's just super beautiful. It's a nice color. When these bake, not a lot of juice is released, but whatever juices they are, they're going to be thickened with your cornstarch and sugar mixture. So for the center, I'm just going to be doing kind of a double layer. Okay, so completely covered. Now let's go ahead and fold our edges in for our galette. So I'm just kind of doing a double fold and I'm going around. Like I said, it's a rustic look. Do a little bit of pressing so it stays in place. And I'm just kind of folding and doing a little bit of twisting and pressing. So, does not have to be perfect. It's going to be super beautiful. And you will be sure to impress your friends and family with this. So there we go with our little bit of breaking. And see, we're just kind of folding that over, tucking it in. You can kind of like squeeze any of those little ends too. Now I just kind of go around and press it, make sure it's all kind of tucked in there. So I've got a little bit of flour over here, so this is where your dry pastry brush comes in handy. Kind of get that off of there before it bakes. So super simple. Your galette is ready to go in the oven. You're going to bake this at 375 degrees, a little bit higher temperature, for about 30 minutes, depending on your oven. It could take a little bit longer, as much as 40 or 45 minutes. What you're going to want to watch for is for the outside to get a nice brown color. And what you can do too is take one of your spatulas, if you're not sure, and kind of lift it up after it's baked and make sure that it's a little brown on the bottom too and not doughy at all. Okay, so before this goes in the oven, I've just got some apricot preserves mixed with some honey. I warmed this a little bit so it's a little loose, and then this just kind of gets spooned over the top. So what's going to happen when this is in the oven is this is going to melt, and you're going to get a little bit of juice from the apricot, and that's going to all kind of thicken in the bottom with the cornstarch and sugar mixture. So you don't have to worry about getting this on there perfectly. You're just kind of spooning it, and make it as even as you can. Make sure that you get it around the whole tart, and now it's ready to go in the oven. Okay, so let's clean off our board. And I've got a tart that I baked earlier, so we'll pull that one out and take a look at it. So this is where your bench scraper is going to come in handy. You can use this for so many things. I highly recommend this tool in the kitchen. Okay, I'm going to clean off our cutting board. That was quick with our bench scraper. So here's the galette, or some people call it a tart too, like I've been doing, which I baked earlier. So It's nice and rustic looking. My shell or my crust has gotten a little golden brown. It's very well set. There's a little bit of liquid to it, and that's okay because it's just going to make it more delicious. So I've got some apricot preserved that I mixed with a little bit of water. And then we're just going to be brushing this on the galette. You don't have to do this. You can finish it off with a little powdered sugar. That's nice. But as you can see, when I'm putting this apricot glaze with the preserve that I had left over mixed with a little bit of water and warmed, it kind of brings the crust or the shell kind of a little bit to life. It kind of takes away that matted look, which the matted look is okay. It just, you know, whatever you're looking for. Like I said, a little bit of powdered sugar is nice too. So you can kind of shine this up a little bit too with some of this glaze that I have, or you can leave it just plain. So this is a super easy summertime dessert. Very well loved. Like I said, does not have to be refrigerated. If you want to take it, you know, slightly warm to a picnic after you finish it off, you can take it whole like this and just kind of cut it when you get there. Okay, so that's our finished galette. So let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. So you can serve this with a variety of fruits. I brought a little bit of ice cream and we'll give it a little scoop of ice cream for a nice summertime touch. So please let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to give me a call or send me an email if you think of anything after the segment. So let's go ahead and cut our galette. Keep in mind when you're cutting fruits, it's not always going to be perfectly neat, but that's okay. Just use the sharpest knife that you can. And then we have our nice summertime galette. It's a nice crispy crust. It's delicate and crisp all at the same time. So what you can do is serve this maybe with some blackberries. I like blackberries with apricot. I think they're a nice combination. And the blackberries also look super nice on the inside when you cut them. And then we'll put a scoop of ice cream and our galette will be ready to go. So super easy dessert to make. What you can do if you're planning to make this in a restaurant, you can make your dough ahead of time and you can just roll out your dough when you're ready to make your galette, and they'll give you a little bit of prep time, and they're super easy. You can have your sugar and cornstarch mixture ready to go, have your fruits ready to go too, and you'll be able to produce these easily in a restaurant. So let's go ahead and put a little scoop of vanilla ice cream on here, and then we'll have a nice finished galette. Ooh. Got a little drippy in here, but that's okay. We'll get a nice scoop out of here. Okay. So we've got a nice scoop of vanilla ice cream on our galette, a good summertime favorite. And thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.